Think of parents who work two jobs, sacrificing sleep and comfort to give their children opportunities they never had. Their bodies may ache, their schedules may be relentless, and exhaustion may knock at their door every night. But what keeps them moving is not willpower alone. It is love, it is vision, it is the unshakable why that makes every sacrifice meaningful. These parents are not superhuman. They are simply anchored by something greater than themselves. Their purpose gives them strength that comfort never could. To someone looking from the outside, the long hours and constant effort might seem unbearable, but for these parents, every paycheck is not just money. It's a step toward a better education for their child, a safer neighborhood, or a brighter future. Their why transforms struggle into significance. Think of athletes who wake up long before the sun rises, training in empty gyms or on lonely tracks. They sweat, they strain, they push through pain that most people would quit under, not because it's easy, but because they have a clear picture of who they want to become and what they want to achieve. Every repetition, every sprint, every drop of sweat is fueled by a why so strong that it drowns out the voice of doubt. When a marathon runner trains through the winter cold, or when a boxer keeps fighting even after bruises cover their body, it is not the discipline alone that sustains them. It is the vision of victory, the dream of proving to themselves that they can endure what others cannot. The why is what keeps their legs moving when their muscles beg them to stop. Think of entrepreneurs who risk rejection, failure, and financial uncertainty to bring their ideas to life. They endure sleepless nights, setbacks, and moments of fear. Not because they enjoy the struggle, but because their vision burns brighter than their obstacles. To them, every no is simply fuel for persistence. Every challenge is proof that the journey is worth it. Behind every successful business, behind every product that has changed lives, there are countless stories of sacrifice, people who mortgaged their homes, emptied their savings, and endured failure after failure, all because they refused to let go of their why. It's not the hours they worked that made them great. It's the purpose that made those hours worthwhile. Think of students who study late into the night, who stay in when others go out, who pour themselves into books, lessons, and skills. They may not see the results instantly, but their why, the dream of a future where their effort pays off, keeps them focused. For some, it's the goal of becoming the first in their family to graduate, breaking generational cycles. For others, it's the dream of becoming a doctor, an engineer, a teacher, someone who will one day impact lives in ways that ripple beyond themselves. Every page read, every exam passed, every hour spent in concentration is not just preparation for a career, it's an investment in a life that aligns with their deepest aspirations. And think of the countless ordinary people who make extraordinary choices every day. The single mother who goes back to school while raising her children, showing them by example that it is never too late to grow. The immigrant who works tirelessly to build a new life in a foreign land, carrying the weight of both their sacrifices and their hopes for the generations that will follow. The young professional who sacrifices weekends to learn skills that will one day open doors, trading short-term comfort for long-term impact. What unites them all is not talent or luck, but clarity of purpose. They know why they are doing what they are doing, and that why transforms every late night, every sacrifice, every ounce of effort into an act of progress rather than an act of pain. History itself is filled with examples of this truth. Think of Nelson Mandela, who endured 27 years in prison, not because he enjoyed suffering, but because his why, a vision of equality and freedom, was more powerful than the walls that confined him. Think of Thomas Edison, who failed thousands of times while trying to invent the light bulb, but whose why, to bring light to the world, kept him from seeing failure as the end. Think of Malala Yousafzai, who risked her life for the right to education, driven not by fear, but by a why so strong that even threats and violence could not silence her. This is the power of purpose. This is why reconnecting with your why each morning matters. Because when life gets heavy, and it always will, Your why is the thing strong enough to carry the weight. Discipline may start the journey, but purpose is what keeps you moving when every obstacle tells you to quit. They are not fueled by fleeting motivation that would burn out too quickly. They are fueled by a why so strong that even exhaustion cannot weaken it. Motivation is like a spark. It can light a fire, but without fuel it fizzles out. Purpose is the fuel. It is the anchor that steadies you in the storm, the compass that keeps you pointed toward your true north, and the energy source that keeps you going long after comfort has faded. Their why is not a slogan scribbled on a wall or a passing burst of inspiration. It is etched into their identity, woven into the fabric of who they are. And the beauty of asking yourself why each morning is that it doesn't just set the tone for the day, it begins to shape your very being. You stop being someone who reacts to life and instead become someone who directs it. We are what we consistently choose to do, and those choices, when tied to purpose, begin to sculpt us into the people we were meant to become. If every morning you remind yourself why you're chasing growth, why you're pushing yourself through the discomfort, why you're choosing discipline over distraction, then every action you take begins to align with your deepest values. This alignment is powerful. It shifts you from aimless effort to intentional progress. It transforms scattered bursts of motivation into steady streams of momentum. Progress stops being accidental and starts being inevitable because you're no longer moving blindly. You're moving with direction. That clarity shields you from one of the greatest thieves of joy and progress: comparison. We live in a world dominated by highlight reels, filtered snapshots, curated achievements, and endless metrics of success. It is so easy to lose yourself chasing someone else's path, so easy to drown in the illusion that everyone else is ahead while you are falling behind. But when your why is clear, you stop asking, "Am I as good as them?" and instead ask, "Am I living in alignment with my purpose?" That single shift liberates you from envy and redirects you toward authenticity. You are no longer competing against the world. You are honoring the reason you began. And that, more than anything else, sustains joy in the journey. Still, life will never be free of obstacles. Distractions will come, setbacks will challenge you, and there will be days when quitting feels easier than continuing. But it is precisely in those moments that your why whispers back to you. It doesn't always roar. Sometimes it is just a quiet reminder in your heart that the struggle you are facing is not a sign to stop, but a signal that you are still alive, still stretching, still growing, still upgrading into the next version of yourself. Struggle is not the enemy. It is evidence of progress. Without it, there is no growth, only stagnation. The power of small, consistent changes lies in the fact that discipline alone may not be enough to hold you, but purpose will. Purpose is the rope you grip when the climb gets steep. It is the handrail that steadies you when the path feels shaky. It gives meaning to every sacrifice and transforms hardship from something that breaks you into something that builds you. Purpose does not erase pain, but it makes pain worthwhile. And that, more than anything, is what keeps us moving forward when everything else whispers stop. Imagine a musician spending hours in a dimly lit room, practicing scales until their fingers are raw. To an outsider, it might look like drudgery, monotony, or even madness. But to the musician, every note played is not just practice, it is devotion. Each repetition is a brick in the cathedral of their dream. Their why is not simply to play music, but to create something that moves people, heals hearts, and inspires change. That is why they keep going when fatigue sets in, why they return day after day to the same scales, the same keys, the same endless repetition. What looks ordinary from the outside is extraordinary from within, because purpose transforms repetition into ritual. Picture the student working late into the night while friends are out celebrating. Their desk is cluttered with textbooks, assignments, and half-drunk cups of coffee. To some, it looks like sacrifice without reward. But for that student, the exams, the essays, the endless chapters are not just hurdles, they are stepping stones. Each hour invested is not lost time, but planted seed. The why that fuels them is not about passing a class, but about building a future where knowledge has the power to change lives, perhaps their own, perhaps their families, perhaps generations to come. Again, the why changes everything. Consider the athlete pushing through one more lap, one more set, one more grueling workout after their body screams for rest. To an onlooker, it may seem like punishment, but for the athlete, every bead of sweat is currency, every ache is an investment, every sacrifice is proof that they are moving closer to their vision. Their why may be to win, to inspire, to prove wrong those who doubted, or simply to prove to themselves that they are stronger than they once believed. Whatever the reason, it is that why, not raw discipline, that lifts them off the ground when they stumble, that pushes them through pain when logic says stop. Or think of entrepreneurs and dreamers working on their ideas in the quiet hours of the night, long after the world has gone to sleep. They sacrifice weekends, they endure failure, they face doubt from family, friends, even themselves. Yet they persist. Why? Because their why, the vision of building something that matters, burns brighter than their fear of failure. It is that why that keeps them sketching ideas on napkins, pitching when no one believes, and rebuilding when everything falls apart. This is why, tomorrow morning, before you rush into your routine, you must pause. Take a breath. In that breath, ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why do I want to grow? Why do I want to become better? Write it down. Speak it out loud if you must. Carry it with you like armor into the chaos of the day. Because when you start with why, you don't just upgrade your habits, you upgrade your life. Habits then stop being chains that restrain you and instead become choices that liberate you. Each action transforms from something you have to do into something you choose to do. And when life is lived through choice, guided by purpose, even the hardest journeys become worth taking. The most powerful upgrades don't come from changing what you do. They come from changing why you do it. Because once your why is clear, the discipline follows naturally. Once your why is strong, consistency feels less like a chore and more like a rhythm. Once your why is undeniable, resilience becomes your second nature. This is the beauty of starting with why. It does not just give you direction for your day, it gives you direction for your life. That is the beauty of starting every morning with why. It doesn't just give you direction for the day, it gives you direction for your life. Too often, when we think about growth and upgrading ourselves, we believe the effort lies entirely in routines, in hours worked, in goals chased, in the sheer grind of doing more. But the foundation of all progress isn't just in the action itself, it's in what fuels the action. And what fuels our actions, more than anything else, is what we feed our minds. Think about it. You wouldn't expect your body to perform at its best if you filled it with nothing but junk food, sugar, and empty calories. No athlete fuels a marathon on candy bars and soda. The body simply cannot run at its highest level on low-quality fuel. And yet, so many of us expect our minds, the most complex, most powerful operating system we will ever own, to run on a steady diet of gossip, outrage, clickbait headlines, and trivial distractions. It's like asking your mind to sprint on fumes. Growth requires intention, and intention begins with what we allow inside. Consider technology. Every piece of tech we own, our phones, our laptops, our tablets, our cars, even the apps we use daily, all run on software. And what happens when that software becomes outdated, cluttered with errors, or overloaded with junk files? Performance slows. Crashes happen. Glitches frustrate us. Functions fail. So what do? We update the software. We install new code. We clean the system and build a stronger foundation. Now imagine your mind as the most powerful software you will ever possess. If you never update it with better input, it doesn't matter how hard you push or how many hours you grind, you will always be running on flawed, outdated programming. And flawed programming always produces flawed output. The quality of your thoughts will always mirror the quality of your input. Garbage in, garbage out. Greatness in, greatness out. Here's where it gets even more sobering. Studies show the average person spends more than 2 hours a day on social media. That doesn't even count television, streaming platforms, video games, or endless scrolling. 2 hours. Every single day. And what fills those 2 hours? Noise, arguments, endless highlight reels carefully crafted to make you feel behind. News engineered not to inform, but to shock. Outrage designed to addict you. If you feed your mind 2 hours of that every single day, what do you think it does to your perspective? To your emotions? To your outlook on life? It becomes the lens through which you see the world. And if that lens is foggy, narrow, negative, or fear-driven, then clarity becomes impossible. Now let's flip the perspective. Imagine redirecting just half of that time, just 1 hour a day. Instead of scrolling through endless noise, imagine feeding your mind with books that challenge your assumptions, podcasts that stretch your perspective, lectures that sharpen your skills, or conversations that expand your worldview. That's over 365 hours in a year, more than 15 full days of upgrading your mind. 15 days where instead of dulling your thinking, you sharpen it. 15 days where instead of narrowing your perspective, you broaden it. 15 days where instead of numbing yourself, you prepare yourself. That is the difference between treading water and truly moving forward. This is not about demonizing entertainment. There is nothing wrong with laughter, with relaxation, with switching off for a while. Rest is healthy. Fun is necessary. But here's the challenge: balance. If your mental diet is made almost entirely of empty calories, gossip, outrage, comparison, trivial distractions, the occasional nutritious thought won't transform you. Just as you wouldn't expect to thrive physically by living on soda and candy with one salad sprinkled in, you cannot thrive mentally by consuming hours of negativity and distraction, punctuated only by the occasional motivational quote or inspiring video. Consistency, not exceptions, determines transformation. What you put in consistently is what will come out consistently, and this doesn't just affect what you know, it affects who you are. The input you consume molds your emotions, your decisions, your worldview, even your identity. Expose yourself constantly to division and fear, and suspicion becomes your default. Fill your mind with gossip and judgment becomes instinct. Spend hours comparing yourself to strangers online, and insecurity becomes your standard of worth. None of this feels intentional, but it is programming you silently, day after day, drip by drip, until you don't even realize how much it has shaped your thinking. But here's the good news: the same principle works in the opposite direction. Better input reshapes you for the better. Fill your mind with stories of courage, and you begin to think braver thoughts. Read biographies of leaders and innovators, and you begin to see possibilities where others see limits. Listen to conversations that explore solutions instead of criticisms, and your mind shifts from focusing on problems to seeking opportunities. Learn skills that require patience and focus, and you develop resilience that strengthens every area of your life. Better input doesn't just upgrade what you know, it upgrades who you become. Look at history's greatest thinkers, innovators, and leaders. They were readers. Not because books held magical answers, but because reading disciplines the mind. It forces you to slow down. It expands your vocabulary. It sharpens your ability to think critically and articulate clearly. It stretches your imagination beyond your current circumstances. It allows you to walk in the shoes of people you've never met, cultures you've never lived in, times you've never seen. And today, we have access to more wisdom than any generation before us. Books, podcasts, audiobooks, lectures, online courses, mentorships. The problem isn't access. The problem is choice. And while many people claim, "I don't have time," the truth is, we all have the same 24 hours. Time is the great equalizer. The real difference is not how much time we have, but how we choose to use it. For most of us, 2 of those hours are already given freely to distraction. Imagine reclaiming those hours. Imagine turning wasted minutes into invested minutes. Imagine upgrading your mental diet with intention. Because the question is not, do you have time? The real question is, will you choose to feed your mind with what will upgrade your life? That choice, day after day, drip by drip, is what separates those who grow from those who drift. It is what separates those who remain stuck from those who rise. The truth is simple. Your input becomes your identity. Your identity drives your actions, and your actions shape your destiny. Upgrade your input, and you upgrade your entire life. The truth is, we don't lack time, we lack priority. Because, let's be honest, if we can give 2 hours a day to social media, then the issue isn't time at all. It's what we value most in the moment. The question is never, do I have time? The real question is, what matters more to me right now? Do I want to be entertained for a moment, or do I want to be equipped for a lifetime? One fills the present with distraction. The other fills the future with transformation. One numbs you temporarily, the other builds you permanently. One gives you an escape, the other expands your capacity to face reality. And here's the beauty of it. The compound effect of better input is exponential. Think of compound interest. If you invest $1 today, it doesn't look like much. But invest $1 every day, let it build, and over time it multiplies far beyond what you imagined. Growth works the exact same way. One podcast won't transform your destiny overnight. One book won't suddenly turn you into a visionary. One insight won't rewrite your character. But when those inputs begin to stack, when each one layers on top of the other, they start to reprogram how you see the world. They reshape your perspective. They influence your decisions. They broaden your horizons. And then one day, without even noticing the exact moment, you wake up and realize you're thinking differently. You're responding differently. You're seeing opportunities that once passed you by. That shift didn't come from one single lightning strike moment. It came from the slow, steady reprogramming of your mind through better input. Imagine standing in front of a mirror every single morning. If the mirror is clean, you see yourself clearly. You adjust, improve, grow. But if that mirror is coated with dust, dirt, fingerprints, smudges, your reflection becomes distorted. You start believing a false version of yourself, not because you changed, but because your view was unclear. That's what poor input does. It clouds your reflection. Better input clears the mirror. It doesn't just help you see the world more clearly. It helps you see yourself more clearly. And once you see yourself with clarity, you realize what you're actually capable of. The greatest leaders, the innovators, the visionaries who shaped history weren't necessarily the most talented, the wealthiest, or even the smartest. Many of them started with far less than the people around them. What separated them wasn't some magical gift. It was their intentionality. They were careful, sometimes even ruthless, about what they allowed into their minds. They guarded their input because they understood a profound truth. What enters you eventually emerges from you. Garbage in, garbage out. Wisdom in, wisdom out. Your input shapes your output, and your output shapes your destiny. Here's where so many of us misunderstand growth. We picture it as a dramatic breakthrough, a moment of sudden transformation, a lightning strike of brilliance, a single mountaintop revelation. But real growth doesn't work that way. Real growth is rarely a leap. It is almost always a series of small, deliberate steps. It's not the single giant push that gets you to the peak. It's the quiet, consistent path you walk every single day that eventually leads you to the mountain's summit. This is where the concept of micro-learning becomes so powerful. The practice of embracing small, deliberate acts of growth every day. Micro-learning doesn't overwhelm you. It doesn't demand that you quit your job, uproot your life, or wait for the perfect moment. It simply asks you to take one step forward today, and then another tomorrow, and another the day after that. Learn one new insight each day. Master one new concept each week. Expand your perspective just a little bit at a time. Do that for a year, and you've collected 365 upgrades. Do that for a decade, and you've built a foundation of wisdom, resilience, and mastery that no weekend seminar, no viral video, no quick-fix formula could ever replicate. Take Jerry Seinfeld, one of the most celebrated comedians of all time. People look at his career and assume brilliance poured out of him daily. But the truth is far simpler, almost boring. He created a system called "Don't Break the Chain." Every day he would write one joke. Not 10 jokes, not perfect jokes, just one. And on a calendar he would mark an X for every day he succeeded. His only goal was to keep the chain unbroken. Some days the jokes were weak, some days they weren't funny, but the system wasn't about perfection. It was about consistency. Over time, those daily deposits compounded into mastery. That's the lesson. Greatness doesn't come from giant leaps. It comes from steady daily deposits into your growth account. Too often, we paralyze ourselves waiting for the perfect conditions. We wait for more money, more time, more clarity, more confidence, more readiness. We tell ourselves, when life slows down, then I'll start. But growth doesn't wait for you. It doesn't reward hesitation. Growth rewards those who start, those who begin, however small. The greatest trap is believing small steps don't matter. But the greatest truth is that they're the only thing that does. Think again of compound interest. The first few deposits don't look like much. You can't see the change. But keep going, and those small investments begin to multiply. What once looked insignificant suddenly becomes unstoppable. Microlearning works the same way. A page read here, a podcast listened to there, a question asked, a note written, a conversation leaned into. On their own, they may seem trivial, but together they create exponential growth. And the beauty of microlearning is how practical it is. It fits into the cracks of your life. You don't have to pause the world to upgrade yourself. You don't need to clear a 6-hour block every day to transform. You can listen to a 10-minute podcast on your commute. You can read 2 pages before bed. You can watch a 5-minute tutorial while you eat lunch. Growth doesn't demand your entire day. It simply asks for the small, intentional choices that add up over time. But here's the trap. Small steps are easy to do, but they're also easy not to do. Reading 2 pages is simple, but so is skipping it. Listening to a short podcast is simple, but so is ignoring it. And skipping one day feels harmless. But one skipped day leads to another, and then another until the chain breaks and momentum dies. On the other hand, committing even when it feels small, even when it feels pointless, builds a discipline that compounds into mastery. The consistency itself becomes the victory, and the victory builds into greatness. Growth is not about giant leaps, it's about daily deposits. It's not about waiting for the perfect time, it's about using the time you already have. It's not about dramatic transformations, it's about steady reprogramming. Guard your input, embrace microlearning, commit to the small steps, and you will wake up one day standing on a mountain you never realized you were climbing. Built not on luck or sudden breakthroughs, but on the quiet power of consistent, intentional growth. Learning a new language illustrates this perfectly. Try to cram everything into 1 month, and you'll burn out, frustrated and overwhelmed. Your brain resists the overload, and within weeks, most of what you memorized slips away. But learn just 5 words a day, and suddenly, in a year, you've mastered over 1,800 words. That's not just vocabulary. That's the ability to travel, to hold conversations, to connect with strangers in a new land, to access ideas and cultures you never thought possible. What once felt impossible becomes second nature. Not because you worked harder in one burst, but because you worked smarter in consistent steps. The same is true in fitness. The person who commits to 20 minutes of daily movement will surpass the one who grinds for 2 hours once a week. Why? Because consistency builds habit, and habit builds identity. The body responds not to intensity alone, but to repetition, to rhythm, to the signals it receives every single day. That's why elite athletes train daily, not occasionally. They know greatness is forged in frequency, not in sporadic marathons. And that's the deeper truth. Microlearning doesn't just give you knowledge, it reshapes your very identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone waiting for growth and begin to see yourself as someone living growth. You stop saying, "One day I'll get better," and start saying, I'm already getting better today. That shift is monumental. Because when growth becomes part of your identity, quitting is no longer an option. You're not forcing yourself to improve. You're simply being who you are. Of course, progress will often feel invisible. You'll write jokes that aren't funny. You'll learn words that don't stick. You'll read books that feel dense, complicated, or even boring. You'll lift weights and feel like nothing is changing. But beneath the surface, your brain is wiring new connections. Your body is building muscle memory. And your character is laying foundations for breakthroughs that outsiders will later call talent or luck. They'll see the peak without ever knowing the daily path you climbed to get there. The reality is, growth doesn't demand massive resources, perfect timing, or supernatural gifts. It requires something far simpler: the commitment to start, the courage to start small, and the discipline not to stop. Growth is not a sprint. It's a chain built link by link, day by day. And the question is, will you let today be another link in your chain? Or will you break it before it even begins? Because true transformation doesn't happen in giant leaps. It happens in quiet moments, in micro decisions, in the compounding power of daily learning. But growth also doesn't happen in isolation. It happens when we are stretched. And often the people around us determine just how far we rise. If you're the smartest person in the room, you've stopped growing because growth requires challenge. And challenge often comes from those who see more in you than you see in yourself. Research confirms this. Our lives are a reflection of the people we spend the most time with. Their language shapes our language. Their habits shape our habits. Their vision of what's possible becomes the ceiling or the floor of our own. If your circle is pessimistic, you'll start to tilt negative. If your circle is ambitious, you'll feel compelled to rise. Environment always wins. That's why surrounding yourself with people who stretch you is non-negotiable. When greatness is the new normal, mediocrity becomes impossible. History proves this. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't dream alone. He was surrounded by a movement that fueled his vision. Steve Jobs didn't build Apple in isolation. He had Wozniak, teams of engineers, and a culture of innovation that demanded excellence. Olympic athletes don't train in empty rooms. They have coaches, peers, competitors who push their limits daily. Growth is rarely the result of strategies or hacks. It is born in environments that demand more of us than comfort ever would. And yes, that may mean making hard choices. It may mean redefining your circle. It may mean distancing yourself from voices that drain your energy and being intentional about who gets to shape your vision. Because courage, like fear, is contagious, but only if you're close enough to catch it. And when you surround yourself with people who believe in possibility, who see challenges as opportunities, something shifts. Your conversations change, your goals expand, your standards rise. Soon, success doesn't feel like an exception. It feels normal. What once intimidated you becomes your new baseline. The truth is, busyness is not progress, and motion is not movement. You can spend all day burning energy, crossing tasks off a list, racing from one activity to the next, and still collapse at night, unfulfilled. Why? Because growth isn't about doing more. It's about becoming more. Busyness is about activity. Growth is about alignment. Activity burns time. Alignment multiplies it, and that only happens when you live deliberately, when you align your priorities with your purpose, when you guard your input from distractions, when you embrace micro-learning as your daily practice, and when you choose environments that stretch you instead of sedate you. That's how you stay motivated through challenges, by anchoring your why, compounding your growth through daily input, and surrounding yourself with people and environments that demand the best version of you. Upgrading yourself every day isn't about chasing perfection, waiting for the right moment, or making giant leaps. It's about small, consistent, intentional steps that compound into transformation. Because the truth is, we don't lack time, we lack priority. If we can give hours to social media, then we already have the hours to feed our minds with better input. The kind of input that equips us for a lifetime rather than entertains us for a moment. Growth is rarely a lightning strike. It's a slow layering process. A podcast here, a book there, a conversation today, a reflection tomorrow. Over time, these layers reshape how we think, how we act, and how we respond. Until one day, almost without realizing it, we've become someone different, stronger, wiser, more capable. That is the art of micro-learning. 5 words in a new language. 1 page written, 20 minutes of movement. A single insight absorbed. Seemingly insignificant actions that, when repeated, build resilience, mastery, and identity. The story of Jerry Seinfeld's "Don't Break the Chain" reminds us that greatness is forged not by talent alone, but by discipline, consistency, and the refusal to quit. Reflection, too, is essential. Like the military's after-action review, it's not about blame, it's about extracting lessons. What worked? What didn't? What can we do better tomorrow? Without reflection, we run in circles, mistaking motion for movement. With reflection, we turn experience into wisdom and setbacks into stepping stones. Because in the end, growth is not about intensity, it's about consistency. It's not about sudden breakthroughs, it's about steady reprogramming. It's not about doing more, it's about becoming more, and setbacks will come. Failures, rejections, disappointments, heartbreaks, they are not dead ends. They are detours, redirections, and sometimes even invitations to grow in ways we would never have chosen on our own. Too often, we see setbacks as signals to stop, as proof that we are unworthy or incapable, but in truth, they are the very soil in which resilience takes root. The tension of the bowstring does not weaken the arrow, it prepares it for flight. The pressure, the pull, the resistance, it all becomes energy for the launch forward. Growth without setbacks is like strength without resistance. It cannot exist. Every failure you endure is a lesson disguised, every rejection a teacher whispering that the path may be different, but the destination is still possible. History proves this again and again. Think of Thomas Edison, who famously reframed over 1,000 failures, not as mistakes, but as discoveries. I have not failed. I've simply found 1,000 ways that will not work. His light bulb didn't come from a single spark of genius, but from persistence, from reframing resistance into progress. Or consider J.K. Rowling, who faced rejection after rejection from publishers who didn't believe in her story. But instead of letting those no's define her, she let them redirect her, sharpen her, fuel her. The world now knows Harry Potter not because of instant acceptance, but because of relentless resilience. Behind every story of greatness lies a long trail of setbacks reimagined as stepping stones. Even nature reminds us of this truth. A tree does not become tall and unshakable overnight. Its strength comes from years of unseen work, stretching upward toward the light, rooting downward into the soil, weathering storms, enduring seasons of drought, bending without breaking. Growth is not one visible act. It is thousands of invisible ones. And just like trees, we grow through daily acts of stretching and rooting, reading books that expand our thinking, learning skills that sharpen our future, reflecting on experiences to turn them into wisdom, connecting with others who lift us higher, choosing courage over comfort, and intentionally surrounding ourselves with people who stretch us instead of shrinking us. Because the truth is, our environments shape us. A single seed planted in poor soil struggles, but planted in fertile ground, it flourishes. Greatness is rarely built in isolation. The right circle doesn't just comfort us, it challenges us, provokes us, and demands more of us. It holds us to higher standards when we are tempted to lower them. It sees potential in us when we doubt ourselves. It pulls us forward when our strength begins to fade. Alone we can go far. Together we can go further. Every innovator, every leader, every champion had a circle that stretched them to horizons they could not reach alone. And over time, these choices, these brushstrokes of daily discipline, consistent reflection, and stubborn persistence create not just progress, but a masterpiece. Life, after all, is a canvas. Some people paint theirs with hesitation, half-finished strokes, smudges of regret. But those who embrace the principle of compounding paint with intention, layering habit upon habit, reflection upon reflection, persistence upon persistence, until the picture of their life becomes something breathtaking. It is never the single brushstroke that defines the painting, but the accumulation of thousands. Compounding is the great amplifier of life. Every action we take, whether disciplined or neglected, either works for us or against us. Neglect compounds into regret. One skipped day becomes 2, then a week, then a month, until we look back and wonder where the time went. But discipline, no matter how small, compounds into transformation. One page read becomes a library. One conversation becomes a network. One workout becomes a lifestyle. One act of courage becomes a life defined by bravery. Time is the multiplier, and consistency is the key that unlocks its power. And this is why perfection doesn't matter. Perfection paralyzes. Persistence liberates. What matters is not that you never miss a day, but that you always return. That you have the courage to begin again, again, and again. Because time, when partnered with consistency, becomes your greatest ally. Missed days don't erase progress as long as you return to the chain. Each day is another opportunity to write, to learn, to build, to love, to stretch. Transformation is never about flawless execution. It is about relentless return. So if you want to upgrade, don't sit around waiting for a breakthrough. Build one. Build it one day at a time, one action at a time, one choice at a time. Stop looking for the mountain to move in a moment and start laying bricks faithfully every day until the wall becomes unshakable. Tomorrow morning, don't overwhelm yourself with grand plans or impossible resolutions. Ask yourself one simple question. What is one small upgrade I can make today? Not tomorrow, not someday, but today. Because small upgrades compound into extraordinary transformations. The world is upgrading every day. Technology advances, industries shift, opportunities evolve. Phones get faster, cars get smarter, apps get more efficient. The only real question left is, why shouldn't you? Why should the world upgrade while you stay the same? Why should the tools in your hand advance if the mind holding them remains outdated? Why should everything else evolve while you cling to the comfort of yesterday? The invitation is there. The path is clear. And the choice is yours. Upgrade yourself, because the future is waiting, and so is the version of you that you are capable of becoming.